Hi everyone, in this video let us take a look at rearranging formulas. So let's get right into it. Question 1 is make z the subject of x is equal to y plus 2z divided by 3. So as I have written down here, what this question wants us to do is to figure out what z is equal to based on what's given here. So over here, we have to realize that the z only appears one time, and that is good. When the z appears one time, that means that we just have to isolate the z from everyone around here, and well, we are done. So we can start off by getting rid of this ugly fraction over here. Fractions are the number one threat in rearranging formulas, so if you see fractions, get rid of them first. So we can multiply both sides by 3 to get rid of that fraction. On the left hand side, we have 3x. And on the right hand side, since you're taking y plus 2z, divide by 3, multiply by 3, the 3's cancel each other out, because multiplication is the inverse of division. So we are now left with y plus 2z on the right hand side. The next thing we have to remove from the right hand side is this y. And we can do that by subtracting y from both sides. On the left hand side, we have 3x minus y. And on the right hand side, since you have y plus 2z minus y, over here we have a plus y minus y, so they cancel each other out. We are left with 2z. Now there's one last thing we have to get rid of to isolate the z, and that is this 2. So 2z is just 2 times z. So all we have to do is divide both sides by 2. On the left hand side, that gives us 3x minus y all over 2. And on the right hand side, you have 2z divided by 2, and the 2's cancel out. So you are left with z. And that is the final answer to our first question, because we have identified that z is equal to 3x minus y divided by 2. Let's move on to our second question. The second question wants us to make n the subject of the following formula. The formula given is m is equal to the square root of n plus 5. Okay, so I was wrong earlier. Fractions aren't your number one threat. Square roots are. So in this case, you want to get rid of this massive square root on the right hand side. So think, what is the inverse of a square root? It is square. So you just have to square both sides in this case. And by squaring both sides, you get rid of this square root. On the left hand side, that gives us m squared. On the right hand side, since the square has cancelled out the square root, we have n plus 5. And to isolate the n now, all we have to do is subtract 5 from both sides. And what subtracting 5 does is that it cancels out the plus 5 over here. So the plus 5 minus 5, they cancel each other out. On the left hand side, you are left with m squared minus 5. And that is simply equal to n. So that is the final answer for this question, because again, we have identified what our subject is, which is n. And over here, we know that n is basically just m squared minus 5. Now let's go to our final question for this video, and probably the hardest one, which is make y the subject of the following formula. X is equal to y divided by y minus z. Now why I say this is difficult is because in the previous two examples, our subject term only appeared one time. But in this case, we have two y's. So let me show you what to do when you have more than one of the subject term. So we want to start off doing the same thing. So we want to multiply both sides by the fraction, or rather by the denominator of the fraction, to get rid of this. So on the left hand side, we take x, and then you multiply that with y minus z. And on the right hand side, you still have y over y minus z. And you want to take this and multiply it with y minus z. Alright, so for the same reasoning, this y minus z and this y minus z cancel each other out because you have y divided by y minus z multiplied by y minus z. So the multiplication and the division cancel each other out. On the right hand side, that leaves us with y. And on the left hand side, you have brackets. And just like in solving equations, whenever you have brackets, it is normally best to just expand them. So when we expand brackets, you want to take x times y and then x times minus z. So x times y is simply xy, minus x times z is just xz. The next step we have to do is we want to move all the terms with the y to the left-hand side and all the terms without the y to the right-hand side. So normally we could just isolate one y by itself if the y appeared once, but in this case, since it appeared twice in our original equation, we have to move the terms to combine them. So what I mean is that let us start off by adding xz on both sides. So plus xz plus xz. On the left hand side, you are left with just xy since you have minus xz plus xz and they cancel each other out. On the right hand side, you simply have y plus xz. So far so good. And what I mean now is that you want to move this y over here to the left hand side as well. And we can achieve that by subtracting y from both sides. So minus y minus y. On the left hand side, that gives you xy minus y. And on the right hand side, you have just xz since you have the plus y and then minus y, and plus and minus cancel each other out. Once we have moved all the subject terms to one side, what we want to do is factor out the subject term. So in this case, not factoring out necessarily the greatest common factor, but factoring out just the y term. Here's what I mean. So you want to do factorization. You want to factor out this y. So what's inside is just x minus 1, since y times x gives you xy, and y times negative 1 gives you minus y. So that's what we have on the left-hand side after factorization. On the right-hand side, we still have xz. And the final step now is that we want to isolate the y by itself, so we don't want this big bracket over here. And since the bracket is just multiplication, we can get rid of it using division. So by dividing both sides by x minus 1, that leaves us with just the y on the left-hand side, since this and that cancel out. So you're left with just the y on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, you have xz over x minus 1. And that is the final answer for our third and last question of this video. So that is it for this video. Hopefully it has helped you out. If you have any questions or any feedback, please do leave them down in the comment section below. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.